How about doing one more?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I thought we'd do uh, a show about communication that helps you be open rather than to close. How does that sound?
Boy, that's like 10 shows.
So I think the practice can be something that helps you stay open whenever you're communicating. One of the things that I think about in the past, because I wasn't aware that I was doing it, but I brought such a negative attitude to life that if it wasn't my idea, I had this predisposition to almost always say no to something that was new or different that I hadn't tried. And it was really interesting, or something that was different than what my expectations were. So if I did a project and I'd worked on it, and thought I did a good job on it, and it received like a critique. Uh, I,
God forbid.
yeah, I know, right? I took it very personally, man. And I would shut down, I would close to the feedback or even wanting to work with the person on it. Like I mentioned before, it could be problem solving, small or big issues. It didn't matter what it was, that I often came in with a negative attitude as opposed to being open. I can think of things like, for example, we have a small problem, could be something about like, um, how do we staff, at work, what people's shifts will be. Or it could be something that seems to be a big problem, like let's say social justice. And pre-practice, the way that I would have came to both those conversations would have been pretty closed off. I would talk about all the things that were wrong, and I would be really locked into whatever my solution for it was without really any openness about how to collaborate and for us to come up with a solution that provides a win-win for everyone.
Mm.
But now with the practice, when someone suggests something for me, I ask questions that are oriented toward keeping me open. So instead of saying what's not working, I would say, hey, how can I do this in a way that helps me grow? How can I do this in a way that helps me be peaceful? How can I do this in a way that helps me continue to see the humanity in everyone around me, even if we think differently or have a different approach to it? How can this experience that you suggest for me, whether it's hiking, going to grad school to do something, different or new, how can that help me? I start to ask a lot of different questions and communicate in a way that helps me stay open. And that's where the growth is. What are your thoughts, Rick?
Well, I couldn't say it any better, Keith. Those are all positive, beautiful thoughts and a great way to cope and a good way for people to understand that most of life is collaborative. It's not you against the world. It's usually networking. And that's what humans have evolved to do, is to work together for the effectiveness of the community. So I think that's what you just said was terrific. I can tell when my ego is a little bit out of control, and that's when I do all the talking. So I notice myself, the more I feel like I'm engaged and the practice is working, the less need I have to tell people what my own beliefs are. My own beliefs, I know what they are. I don't have to demonstrate them. It's like, I think it's like rolling out little mini billboards. Hey, look at me, look at me. Here's my idea. Here's my idea. You don't need to do that. I think listening is really, 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 really important and so underrated in this culture. I give an example. I like to write, and I write short stories for fun. And so I'm always listening for dialogue. And so I try to eavesdrop a little bit. I mean, I don't go out of my way, but I don't turn it off either. If I hear somebody behind me in line and they're chatting, I try to remember the words. And so what I notice a lot about the way people communicate is that there'll be someone who says, I really had a terrible day. And then they'll say what the day was that was so terrible about it. And then before they're even finished, the other person says, oh man, that's nothing. You should have seen what happened to me last week. And then the other person says, oh, that's terrible. But and they keep ratcheting up these stories. And I don't think either one of them are listening. They're just sort of getting off their chest, sort of a litany of things that bother them. And it's not really about listening or communicating. It's just about I don't know what it is. I guess it's just throwing stuff out about themselves. So I would suggest to people, it would be kind of fun for you, just for the hell of it. Instead of jumping in with your opinion, why don't you let somebody else just rattle on and do this? Do what are called non-directive probes, such as, oh, really? How did that make you feel? Why? What was that like? Those things where you're not specifically asking a question, but you're sort of encouraging them to continue to talk without you saying anything about your own experience. Now, once you have that experience once and see what that feels like, most people can't do it. Most people will be jumping in and talking about all the bad stuff that happened to them, or all the great stuff that happened to them, or the amazing thing that their kid did. That's all ego. That's I know I'm out of control when I do that, but I feel a whole lot better when I listen to folks and I kind of get a handle on, okay, I hadn't thought of that. It's always kind of cool to have another set of eyes looking at the same problem.
Oh, I like that, Rick. I think about some of the challenges, big and small, that we deal with on a daily basis. If we brought that kind of more listening attitude and some of the open-ended questions that contribute to being open and being a contribution, I think in the workplace, we're dealing with something with people feeling understaffed and under-resourced at work. And, sometimes there can be a mentality in which, everyone is contributing to expressing that opinion. But what if the conversation or the question was, okay, so this is a situation on paper, in a lot of ways, it's a real experience that we are having with being understaffed and seemingly under-resourced. Okay, so what can we do about it to contribute in this circumstance to contribute to a fun environment under these circumstances, or connective environment under these circumstances? What can we do? And if you start to open yourself up to those possibilities, what you find is you open, and then the possibilities kind of spring forward. Well, we're really in close quarters here, but here's something that we can do to make it fun, to really take advantage of being in close quarters. You start to think in that way. It's kind of like, I remember as a kid, whenever the power would go out because of a storm, we would have, one of my aunts would close off all possibilities. Okay, that's it. Everybody's going to bed. That's it. And then be like, and then the mood would just, sour even more. And that's what I think people do when they bring in a negative attitude and contribute to toxicity in the workplace.
Definitely.
But I had another aunt would be like, okay, it's hide and seek. Let's go. Don't kill yourself tripping over furniture. Let's go. And we'd have the most fun experience with no power. Yeah, no kidding. And you'd almost be disappointed if the power came, back on within an hour. So that's taking advantage of a situation, and that's being open to the possibilities. So here's a situation. We got to work outdoors. It's 115 degrees. How do we make it, the best of this situation? I certainly could have used that kind of mindset when I was in the Marine Corps, but I did. I chose to contribute to the toxicity. In a lot of cases, I was the ringleader. And so, and that only contributes to more suffering, man. And I just want to experience life in a completely different way. So now I am oriented I'm oriented so differently now, Rick. Keith 2.0 is oriented to, how do I communicate in a way that encourages openness or being open? Mm-hmm. And some people are like, sign me up for that. Some people are like, that's a hard no for me. And that's cool too. The party would go on without you. But hey, the mission is free. So as long as you bring in an attitude that you want to contribute and be part of the solution, come on in. So that's kind of my mentality now. And I think that's available to all of us as long as we stay open.
I love that. I love that idea. The admission is definitely free. And it's always, as we say so many times on these podcasts, it's a choice. It's a choice. One, though, leads to a feeling of camaraderie, a feeling of well-being, a feeling of joy. The other leads to close down, negativity, frustration, and anxiety.
I totally agree, Rick. Man, I think we can end there, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me stay open.
Hey, babe. Thanks to you, man. I'll tell you, I just love being with you. This is like going to church when we do these things. I love hearing you, and I love the way you think and the way you've processed life, and how, man, how much you've changed, and how your life is so much better. I can tell by the practice.
Thank you, Rick. I love you, man.
I love you. Adios.
Adios.